Hey everybody, just getting started a little early to get things set up. So you may feel uh, really intense energy when you pop in. So I am going to, I put some suggestions in the description as you come in if it feels really wonky, but let me see if I can copy some of this, in the chat. So when you come in, um, you can stabilize yourself. Uh, okay. Uh, okay. So yeah, I'll take a moment here and just allow people to pop in. Share it on my. See if I can share it on my page. So yeah. So those of you watching on replay, you can probably scroll forward so you don't have to watch me waiting. All right, so I'm going to find the link on my phone as well. Um, let's see. There we go. There I am. So yeah, we got a couple of people. Hi, Chastity. Oh, I'm so glad you were able to come. I know it's a last minute thing, so I'm looking for the link. I don't know. I don't know. Let me see. Uh, Getting the link for myself, and then I need to. Sorry if I'm talking out loud. It's the only way I can remember what I'm talking about. So let's see. Uh, I'll paste it there. Um, let's see. Okay. So I know I'm still getting used to how to use the YouTube Live. I tested it out myself um, a couple of times today just so I knew what I was doing. I'm not sure about how to do the scheduling thing. So, it's we're always trying to figure it out. Let's see. I'll share it to Revealing the Jewels of Autism as well. Okay. So everybody can hear me, I take it? I think my husband would have told me if I couldn't hear me. So uh, yeah, this is a last minute sort of thing. I all of a sudden, I guess, as it said, this is how it goes now, um, where you know you don't really plan it. I mean, some things we still have to plan, but you don't really plan it, and all of a sudden, something inside you just goes, "Okay, I have to do that, I guess." And I was thinking about doing it yesterday, but then I decide with our schedule at home and everything, my husband thought it would be better tonight. So once I did that, sort of committed, then there was all this information started flowing in, and last night I could tell we were getting a download, Sammy too. So with Sam here as well, being a big energy field herself, um, things started to really uh, download. And so I'll be checking my notes here every once in a while because I've got a notebook of stickies. And as I was walking by, some other thought would come up, and I'd have to write it down, just the thought. So uh, I'm going to try and talk about this in as an orderly, sort of uh, organized fashion as I can. But like I said, it's kind of just dropping in. So um, I'll try to talk in an organized way, but some of it I may go back and forth as well. And if you think about it, we are sort of in this spiral time now, and you kind of uh, do one thing and then you kind of spiral back and you pick up another piece. So just remember, it may not be linear. Um, so those of you who might be joining in or watching the replay, uh, I have three adult children now. My oldest one is 27 and my youngest is 22. Sammy is my middle daughter. So Chris, the oldest one, is was diagnosed with Down syndrome as a baby, and he had the heart defects, and so he had heart surgery and a lot of other medical issues and things. And then Samantha um, is going to be 24 this year, and she is diagnosed with severe nonverbal autism. And our youngest son, who's 22, he doesn't like me to mention his name. So my youngest one is 22, and he's quote neurotypical. So I kind of had the gamut of um, these differently abled children who are now adults, and they're each of them are very very different. So I kind of watched what it was like in the school systems, of what it was like for them growing up. So some of my observations, especially for my youngest son, uh, I noticed some significant things that I think that I thought about in the past, and so now I'm sort of putting these pieces together, so to speak. So one thing that I noticed about sort of neurotypical, and again, it's in our area here, and I don't know what it's like in all parts of the country, or it sounds similar from what I hear from people. But they go from like preschool, kindergarten to first grade, elementary years. We really kind of coddle the kids, and we tell them to dream, and that they could be anything that they want. And there's a marked shift, in my opinion, from elementary school to middle school, where then all of a sudden the expectations change. There's this feeling and sense from society that now they're entering adolescence, and by now they should be able to sit still, and they should be able to process information by sitting at a desk, for long periods of time, although they do move around. One thing that I noticed, where my son was going to school in elementary school, is that they actually had recess time right before school started. So if if you dropped your child off uh, 15, 20 minutes earlier, there would be supervision on the playground so that the kids could run around, and then be able to go to their class. And then when he got to middle school, things changed, drastically. Like all of a sudden, the play structures are all gone, um, and there's really no recess time, uh, and they had half an hour for lunch. It started earlier, like 7:45 in the morning, and they had uh, 30 minutes for lunch. And some days, my son, would say, I didn't have time to eat lunch. I'd buy him or school lunch, because he didn't usually like sandwiches and things. So he said, I didn't have time to eat because the line was too long. And so they would choose between playing or eating. Uh, and sometimes the kids wouldn't eat at all because it was, like I said, the line was too long. And by the time they got there, it was over. And so then I started, just trying to pack healthy snacks in his backpack, um, so he could nibble throughout the day. And, uh, I thought, how sad that they don't allow them to run around anymore. And also then, for my special needs kids, quote, so to speak, right? Um, they go from this environment, for therapy, they would have like swings and these big, kind of different kinds of structures for like therapy rooms and that vestibular movement kind of input and things like that. And even those would be gone by the time they got to middle school, where the therapist would be not strangling, struggling to find a place to do those kinds of things unless there was that space in that maybe a classroom in a corner or a section where they could actually put up these big swings and things. Um, and then by high school, those things are gone. Those are things are really gone. So, and I thought it was interesting that just when the kids, entering middle school are in uh, a major change going through puberty when the brain is really changing and uh, the body is really changing and having to adapt. Their bodies grow unevenly, especially with the boys. You see kids walking around, they got these huge feet and these really, maybe skinny little legs, So they grow unevenly as well. And so, I remember I used to think in the back of my mind, like, they need to still have those kinds of opportunities to swing and that kind of movement. And then the gym classes, I don't know, most of the country, it seems like it's not like when I was growing up where we had like a designated gym time, maybe every day in the week, and there was a gym teacher. And now, since budget cuts and things, they've eliminated, uh, depending on where you are, if they don't have the budget, music and physical education is one of the first things to go. Um, and so, we've got these kids that are growing up, or the physical education, there would be like literally 50 kids in middle school gym class. And they were, just kind of would be walking around the track or running around the track and things like that. 50 to 80 kids. I mean, that's how many kids were in the PE class. So that's when they need to be moving. That's when they need to get their energy out. And then if you look for the neurotypical kids as well, there's also, you notice that there's lots of different, well, we had lots of different kind of sports opportunities when they're in middle school. I mean, not in elementary school, right? Soccer and baseball, and what else did they have? I mean, mainly soccer, baseball, basketball, right? There were these various activities um, in the summers or after school or on the weekends and things. And, uh, not as competitive when they're younger. And then it gets more competitive as they're growing up, becoming teenagers, middle school, high school. And especially in the summer programs, they'd have some of these summer sports programs up to 15. So now you have kids who are in high school, um, and unless you're athletically inclined, there's no opportunities to play in sports. There's no intramural sports. So these things just, I noticed that they just got narrower and narrower, more and more narrow. And uh, there's a lot of drugs. I mean, it's worse than when I was growing up. I just turned 60, so I grew up mainly in the my adolescent years were in the 70s. And I went to college in the early 80s, you know. So drugs were a problem then, right? And delinquency was a problem then. And it just seems like it's gotten worse. The amount of fentanyl that's available and laced into drugs these days is beyond imagination. I mean, uh, I just had a friend whose son died in college because he got it looked like he died of something that was laced with fentanyl. And we say, oh, we have to educate them, and they educate them about drugs, and they do those education, but you know it's not it's not enough when it's that available, and it's available in the schools. uh, when you hear about the kids, some of the kids themselves are the drug dealers, so they can do all the education they want, but when it's that readily available, and we all know that peer pressure is uh the most is it's a very significant influence on our kids at that age. And to think that there are fewer opportunities for them, to be supervised, that we expect by the time they're, 12ish, that they can be by themselves at home, and uh, have a key and be able to let themselves in and things. But they don't have the judgment, and it's different to teach about sex education and drug education in a classroom when you're sitting versus when you're then out and facing the reality of this. So it's not enough to say that it's up to the parents and they have to educate them. It's an entire system, and you all know that. And kids can get their parents prescription drugs, because so many more people are on prescription medications for depression, mental health reasons. There are more kids who are on ADD medication or ADHD medication, which is a stimulant, and so they sell those. There are fishbowl parties where it's just a bunch of pills in this fishbowl, and they think it's fun to just grab one. You don't know what you're getting, and just take one. We had another girl, in 2019 when my son graduated. She was, or the year before, well, I can't remember, but she had just graduated and she was supposed to go to college, and she had a 16-year-old passenger in her car. They were high, they were on who knows what, uh, crashed into a oncoming Suburban, and the 16-year-old wasn't wearing a seatbelt and was killed. And the driver, who was 18 and about to go to college, she was charged with manslaughter. So, and the amount of overdoses on fentanyl, you just hear about more and more of that. It's laced into all kinds of things. When I was growing up, they didn't have these home factories where you can make drugs and things. We didn't have some of these things that are now, available. I can't even remember the names of it right now. But so anyway, the point is, our system is failing all kids, you know, whether they're special ed, neurotypical. I mean, it's not it's not enough what we're doing, and we know it's a societal problem. It's not just the schools; it's the parents and the stressors that they're under. The amount of, like I said, the amount of prescription drugs that many adults are on. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like for parents who are 20 years younger than me, 20s and 30s, and 40s, that they, grew up in a different in a different kind of world, I'm really starting to realize. And a lot of these problems that, like I said, they were talking about when I was growing up, I mean, they're still here, and they sound like it's worse. Not to mention the gender confusion. Uh, yeah, and Chastity says, yeah, what is the answer to parents being off of big pharma and everyone slowing down to allow for in-home small community education for the kids? How can parents find a way to stay home with their kids? Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And more parents are doing that, and I feel like with things breaking down, we're getting to that point where uh, maybe enough of the infrastructure out there is going to break down. We're going to be forced to maybe be at home. We've talked about this in the other communities where uh, where the answer to get out of this is going to be about communities, your local community, uh, and I think it's coming to that point where we're going to be forced one way or another to rely more on each other. And I think this is one of these talks of why I'm being guided to start talking about it. Um, where we're going to get to that point. More parents are taking their kids out of public schools, uh, and especially after the last 2 or 3 years. But it just we're building up to a breaking point, and I think we're going to be forced to do that. And so, um, this message is about all kids, you know, um, and our education system, but it's definitely tied then to our local community because it's about the parents too that need healing, maybe themselves or how to do some of these things. So um, this is where we're getting to. So this piece, it's a bigger piece because it has to do with our economic system, our financial systems, local community, and things like that. So I'm going to try to stay focused on this education piece because, meanwhile, while things are breaking down, and more parents are opting for homeschooling or setting up homeschool communities, right? That things to consider about educating um, not just the neurotypical kids, but our quote special needs kids and what they have to offer. So, like I was saying, like I was talking about in the beginning about sensory integration, right? Sensory integration for parents who have special needs children, you know what that is. Those are like the therapies that the occupational therapists and speech therapists might do sensory integration to stimulate certain senses and help organize. They call it organizing the brain because we get information from our environment through our senses, and then the neurology has to make sense of that information and put it into an sort of an organized way. Um, and I would say from the time we're babies and we're developing into toddlers and things, we're being kind of uh, groomed to narrow that sensory input and information. So one of the things they say about autism, the cause of autism, is that they have too much going on in their brains and we're supposed to prune some of those connections, right? Neurological connections, and then learn what to focus on in the 3D world, right? So there you have it right there. I mean, that's what they're doing, basically. You're cutting away neurological connections that really maybe would contribute to more um, whole brain kinds of processing. You know what they say? They suspect that that we only use about 10% of our brain. Well, maybe the autists are using 100% of their brain for a reason, and they're not turning off those other connections. So that we only learn to focus on that one thing that the teacher is telling you to focus on. That this is what's important, and it's It's, the only way to think is this way, you know? Um, and ABA therapy, applied behavior analysis, which is sort of what they call, uh, the mind, it starts when they're little, right? I lost my train of thought. I looked at the chat for a second. Um, so they're pruning away these connections and they're telling you what's important. And ABA therapy, that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to uh, take the autistic and they're trying to teach them that this is what you focus on. This is what you focus on. This is what's important. Uh, but as many parents know, that hasn't really been successful, and some of the adults and kids who could spell are saying how traumatizing that some of those AB therapies were. And once you remove the scaffolding, meaning the environmental parameters of the uh, reward system, that they really just revert back to their old behavior of operating in the way that they were born, that they were born into. So anyway, um, the sensory integration piece uh, is important because one of the main things that I'm getting is that uh, with the more sensitive kids now and the more sensitive humans, and it's going to continue to increase, is that the sensory integration part should really be incorporated throughout their education, you know, uh, that it's a way for many of the kids growing up to, if they're learning something, if you're teaching them something, that they have that time of movement uh, in whatever way it may look, whether you're stimulating them auditorily, tactily, kinesthetically, all those things that they're going to continue to need more. They're going to continue to need that all the way through their education system. So, um, I don't know how, well, it's gonna unfold. But so one thing to consider when designing these kinds of programs for, homeschool programs for the kids is to incorporate these kinds of things. And if you look at that part, then it kind of crosses it goes across the board between any ability or disability, because that equipment now is available. They make swings for bigger people, you know. There's a whole park here in a couple of towns over that they recently built, which is for special needs, quote, special needs kids, with these bigger swings and the vestibular kinds of activities and things. I can't remember all the language now because it's been a few years since I really thought about it. But they do exist. They can be made. They should be more readily available to all the kids growing up. So there's one piece. Then, you eliminate this idea of it's just for this population or that population. That movement is going to become increasingly more important for the more sensitive human. And what does the more sensitive human mean? Where our senses um, are all being activated. We have many more senses than these five. I think Sammy said there's 12 senses, and I think Rudolf Steiner had said there's 12. I can't remember them all right now, but they're activating. They're activating, and the way we make sense of our world then needs something different. I feel like even as adults, what I'm being told now in the last couple of days is that we're all feeling these physical changes going on, that it's not a bad idea for you to go out there and get on a swing, or do something else. The brushing, I know a lot of people, some of you probably do the brushing for the lymphatic system, the lymphatic brushing. Well, it could also be to stimulate, this tactile sense. But really getting the feeling of we all need sort of this sensory integration piece now as we're physically changing. So, what is the physical changes? Well, okay, I'm looking at my notes just so I could stay a little bit more focused. Um, sensory integration. So slowing down education. Um, the curriculum we know has to change. They're teaching probably well for those of you who might be listening may feel that the curriculum needs to change, and education needs to be slowed down quite a bit because it's been designed for uh, a mental kind of way of processing, mainly mental, without really being aware of the rest of your body. Um, and again, the information that's given. I mean, who remembers some of these things? When you're kids, like you memorize it and then you forget about it. Uh, so it can be slowed way down to where then students are maybe learning in groups, not necessarily always by age. And uh, I know only a little bit about Montessori and Waldorf, and I think they kind of gravitate towards that kind of style of education. But this means slowing it down uh, even more to not necessarily what the curriculum that we've known is, but it's going to. Oh, Chastity put it in. Thank you. The 12 senses, the external world, smell, taste, sight, temperature. Okay. Yeah, and the immaterial spiritual world, hearing, speech, thought, ego. Thank you, Chastity. Yeah, thank you for doing that. Uh, yeah, that's exactly right. There's many more senses in how we organize how we organize that information. So education can be slowed way down so that they have time to physically process the information. And it also means that we need to be looking at a much longer period of education, not that finishing grades, uh, 1 to 12 by the time they're 18, but we need a longer they're going to need a longer period to grow into adulthood. Many of you who are parents, just because they turn 18 doesn't mean you send them off to college, doesn't mean they're necessarily ready to be an adult. There's that phase of, what in the world is going on. Yeah, and wait until they're 8 to go to school. That's right, because they're still really developing and changing. We can have communities, where kids can play together or have experiences, together before the time they're 8. But again, right now, yeah, we're designed in this world where both parents are working, or they have to work 40 hours a week, all that kind of stuff. That and things are rush, rush, rush. Hurry up and let them to grow up, so that we can push them out into the world and live a stressed out life, right? Where it's fast paced and we're just really feeding the system, feeding still the system. So um, slowing education down, and again, this is another part. I feel like there's ways to incorporate uh, our kids with other abilities, or what we call quote disabilities at this point. And maybe, probably will go away at some point as we continue to evolve. But, in the meantime, there are ways to educate them, especially if you don't have that pressure to perform, you know, to take a test, to memorize something, or that they have to answer a question in a certain way. Those of you, whose kids who are doing the letter boards, and alternatives kinds of communication devices, you know that it can be done differently in more of that classroom setting. If I look at my two older kids, Chris and Sam, they went through basically no education, no formal education of except repeating ABCs and what's the colors because they couldn't perform to answer a question to pass a test to let them somebody know that okay you understand that material. It wasn't until the letter boards we discovered the letter boards that they'd been listening all along, and we're taking in information all along. So and some kids learn by moving. You know, they look like they're not listening, but they are taking the information in. The other part is that energetically, we're going to become more aware of our energy uh, bodies, meaning not just the physical body, but that we have these layers of other energetic bodies, and some, you know, can learn in stillness, and others need to keep moving in order to uh, process that information again. So it comes down to again, let them move, or have those sensory integration kinds of activities to integrate the information, right? Um, yeah, they'll need more time to grow and learn the information. The other part that is becoming more active um, is this growing awareness that each of us are different, even energetically. And so, what um, each student might be doing energetically, or the energy field that they hold, might have a contribution. Like uh, only recently did it really come, the light bulb go off in my head that between Chris and Sam, two very, very different individuals energetically, um, where Sam is working with really, really high frequencies. Things are going really fast, energetically. And Chris is slow. His energy is slow. In his body, it moves slow. But in some way, they're like opposites, but it kind of brings kind of a balance, in our home that it's been a way for Sam to kind of uh, exist in a way because he's holding a kind of a slower heart-based frequency or energy. So um, I think more teachers and educators, it's going to challenge them to learn more about the energy field, that each student may be bringing to the group, and uh, what they do. Hi, Marianne. I'm glad you could join us. Um, so, uh, the energy field is different, the human energy. And some of our kids, as things are really opening up, I mean, it's getting even bigger. Uh, what they can process or what their energy bodies are tapping into. So it's like, Sam, um, over the last couple of days, it's become apparent that, she has this cosmic body, um, and then a galactic body, a uh, solar system body, so to speak. And then there's this human body that's connected to an earth. And uh, then she has her own genetic blueprint, right? Which kind of holds all of that together, in a sense. So it's going to require us to look at the kids that way, and not just the autists. but more and more of these sensitive kids that were born, particularly after 2000, the year 2000, that a lot of these quote neurotypical kids are also wired kind of that way. And um and so there are more kids that are having trouble in school that aren't quote necessarily autistic, but uh they're having more trouble in school because they're hitting these what I was shown was like these markers, um, developmental phases is what they said to call them. So like at 4, 5, there's a phase, and then 8 to 10, there's another one, and then when they hit that prepubescent age of 12 or so, there's another one, and then there's full blown puberty. And so at each of those stages, um, the brain is changing. Uh, but now, not only is the brain changing, but their connection to the earth, uh, the solar system, and maybe the planet. Some of the kids can feel the planets uh, moving or realigning. I mean, this is what I was kind of shown, or galactically, the phase that we're going through galactically and then cosmically, what's happening. And so, particularly with the Earth changes that's happening, all the ley lines that are opening up, uh, being reconfigured, cleared out, cleaned out, uh, it's like it's like so many energetic doors are open, and so it's distracting, um, and it can be disorganizing um, for them. So we need to kind of keep this in the back of our minds as well. That with these changes, planetary changes that are really happening now, uh, it's going to be disruptive to more of our kids. Uh, oh, Chaz and Brown, thank you. Yeah, welcome. Oh, you're a teacher with Aramis? Wow, that's great. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for joining us. Um, so anyway, we need to be more, well, some of us, will get it. Other parents are, it's gonna be some hard knocks before they can get it. But the fact that you don't need to necessarily be pushing them to, memorize that thing. Uh, because again, seeing my older kids and how much they already knew, it's like, don't worry about it. They'll get it. They'll get what they need to know. And again, we have to change the education anyway, the curriculum in particular about what's important and what's not important. The other piece is, let's see. There's many pieces here. So, um, is that the information is more energetic. So you may not need as many words. How many of you are feeling you know, uh, like you read something and it could be like one sentence and it just goes, just blows your doors open. And it was like just one word or one sentence or the way that person happened to say it. And you get it. You understand because the words have energy. The concepts have energy themselves. So you may not need as many words to teach, and some may still learn that way, uh, where they're processing that energy through words. But there are others, well, I think more and more, you're not going to need as many words uh, because energetically, they may get it, so you could be so I'm seeing an example of like, you're teaching a group of kids and then you say something and then all of a sudden one of them gets up and they start, circling or they start to wander around and it's like it's because whoa, something just went off, in their not just their brain, but we're processing now the knowledge through our energy field. We're understanding at a deeper level than just the mind, which is what how they do, mind controlled so many of us, so many people on the planet. So um, this is a good thing because we have to bridge that mind mental processing with our physical, with our intuitive sense, So, maybe you'll be teaching a group of kids and then they all may start to get really excited because something just clicked for them, and maybe the best thing to do in that moment uh, is to just let go of the lesson for that day. And it's like, okay, everybody, let's, I don't know, dance, run, go swinging, whatever you need to process that information because it's getting processed now in the body, the physical body, and also the energetic body, the layers of the aura, you know. So, which is leading me now to the part about let's see if I can unpack this in a sense. Uh, so like tapping into, let's say their gifts, so to speak. Um, some of us are made to actually design, work with our hands and actually make in the physical, the material world. Well, there are some that are building and designing in the pre-manifestation stages, the pre-manifestation templates, the sacred geometry. They're building it before the manifestation. So learning to group kids together, let's say, some who may be the actual physical doers, and learning to pair them with or a group uh, with kids who may look like they're just sitting there, but they're designing something or they're helping to bring that information in from the cosmos, which is then gets translated galactically, and then then they're bringing that information in, and then there will be certain individuals who will say, okay, I know exactly what materials, physical materials we need to do that, and they can design that. We have architects and structural engineers, it's sort of like that as well. But now energetically, there we're like accessing different layers, multiple layers. This is the multidimensional human accessing, almost too much information now. It's going to be for a while. And what do we do with all that? And how do we process that? And how do we raise kids, our children now, to process that and also then deliver that gift, right? Because we need them to grow up to change the technology. We need them to grow up to change the mathematics, to solve the different mathematics. So how are we going to allow them to do that if we keep teaching them the same old thing and we require them to learn uh, in the way that we've been teaching them, So um, this is the multi-dimensional human that's coming together. And so the other part was right, the sensory integration. So what does sensory integration, being able to make sense of all this information that's coming in now, not just through our five senses, but cosmically, galactically, the solar system, our sun, the earth, and all of that, how do we bridge that all together? And what Sam was saying was that uh, we're moving sensory integration, the process of sensory integration, to once they become adults, is omnipresent integration, so that we're teaching them, and we have to learn this too as ourselves as adults, that what do you do with all of that? What do you do with all of that information? So like I was having visions of even um, within their aura, there are different layers of their aura, you know, uh, holding that information in, and maybe learning to breathe and say, okay, I'm gonna put that information in this layer of my aura for now until I know what to do with it, until I can ground myself, connect to the planet and stabilize myself. It's all of those things, um, particularly learning to stabilize ourselves, as all this information is coming in. Do, 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 da, da. So yeah, nurturing, our kids to be a soul and spiritual being. So this is part of all of that, this multidimensional human. Um, da, 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 oh, and that the earth, what's going to drive a lot of these changes as well is that the earth now is taking her place as a cosmic galactic being herself. So, and we're made of earth's matter and we, reflect the earth. And so that's going to drive a lot of it. Into your words. Yeah, the feeling state. Okay, there's this one piece about, all right, I'm going to go to this piece about spiral time and learning in spirals. Yeah, it's not linear uh, time or linear learning, but spiral, so meaning that, and I think we're all doing that too. So the example would be like, you feel like you had accomplished or you cleared out something or you uh, dealt with a past life memory or something and now it's coming back or pieces that we may have made leaps in consciousness, suddenly you're like remembering, oh, I remember this happening, 10 years ago or so. So we're like spiraling, okay, and picking up those pieces. And now you might be going back to Egyptian timelines or, other timelines. And Atlantis saying, okay, you're picking up that piece, that lesson, and we're spiraling. And so even learning, in a sense, in this, as this 3D human, well, not a 3D human, we're trying to move to 5D human, but, that even learning, it's okay to go back to a lesson, so you may have students who are, middle school age and, suddenly they wanna go back to, and keep it more fluid, they may wanna join that group of kids that are more in that elementary age level and learn that lesson again because you're spiraling. Okay, what was that again? Because now, as they're developing, they can process that information differently. And I've in all honesty, I've seen that with my younger son's school when he was growing up. They would repeat, in the middle school, certain lessons that they learned and repeated, but with a little bit more complexity. But there it was more linear. So this is talking about, yeah, thinking in spirals. Thinking about spiral time and what does that mean? We're not regressing. We're picking up pieces. We're continuously uh, picking up pieces. And when we look at like the crystal spiral, how we manifest out, how we look at sacred geometry and how our flower blooms, they're in spirals, there's spirals. And so the energy moves in spirals. And if we look at how we're growing up, how we grow up and even develop, um, you know, it's in kind of that spiraling pattern as well. Uh, okay. So there was a piece in here about also about our our males, right? Our boys growing up. Uh, and, again, without that supervision, allowing them to kind of be out on their own um, as they grow up, then they can, kind of get into more trouble. And that aggressive masculine kind of energy, uh, that's going to start to change as well. Um, and learning how to direct that male energy. And I'm not sure how to exactly explain this piece because this was something that I was seeing kind of briefly was that when you hit puberty, right, there's a lot that changes with our endocrine system. And there's something that happens to the vagus nerve that is supposed to enable um, that connection with our endocrine system and also the rest of our neurology, the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, especially the brainstem, and how information is processed. And it's almost like this schism that's occurred to the human template, so that um, promotes then as as our boys are growing up and there's all this testosterone and uh, things coming online, that schism then, because they don't know how to process that energy of information, that it's been directed more in an aggressive way. So now as we start to um, reintegrate this vagus nerve, brainstem, parasympathetic, and sympathetic nervous system, um, that we're going to be learning how to help them direct more of that maleness energy. I'm calling it maleness because females can have that as well, depending on the well, I won't go into that because that can be a confusing topic. But I mean, I think the people that are watching you, you understand what I'm saying. That we need to learn, or we're going to learn more strategies about how that energy is processed. So a lot of this, what uh, one of the things that we have to grasp is now, um, what do we do with all this new information that's available, and that's coming in really fast now and just, you know, I'm sure a lot of you felt it too, where you just feel like, "Ugh, when is this going to stop?" We just feel like we're being slaughtered with the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And what do we do with how do we manage all of that information? And um, we're going to be uh, the adults ourselves. We're going to have to figure out how to process that energy of information. How do we process it, with the earth? It feels like a lot of it is this relationship with the earth that's going to help us learn to process that energy, know where to direct it. And as the ley lines, what I'm seeing right now is that as the ley lines change and open up, it's going to facilitate more of that, so we don't feel like we have to, go punch somebody. Um, Although that there'll still be that going on here for the next few years probably. But uh, we, we're going to have to learn how to process that information differently, because it really is all energetic. It is spirit. Some of you heard me saying that now. Spirit and energy are really the same thing. We've been talking about it as if it's two separate things, but they're really the same thing. And it's what holds our reality together. It's what holds atoms together. It's down to the subatomic quantum levels, that it's spirit. And in this realm of physical beingness, this is the Christ spirit. This is Christ consciousness, that is the living and animating force of our dimensionalized system. So uh, I think I hit on, um, yeah, I hit on all the points that on my sticky notes here on the side. So I know this is a lot of uh, probably energetic information. Again, this is like a transmission, and so. how do you make this useful? I don't have specific tangible, like, do X, Y, and Z at this point. Um, but it's talking points to um, get you to start thinking and processing in your own way. So again, just like I was talking about with the kids and how do you process the information, yeah, you might, want to come back and just listen to sections at a time. What does that mean? And what does that look like in the real world? How do you do that? And I think it's going to be somewhat different for each person and in the area that you live in. Um, there's no mm, pressure to try and do all of what I just talked about, uh, because we're just kind of getting started. And I think this is part of laying the foundation for when, um, what we can really start to build something new, build new communities, because it is going to take uh, your local community as well in order to make these educational changes, which is going to also drive the changes to the local economic system, in which we live. So, uh, you know, give yourselves time to digest, to process, take little bits at a time of what you feel you know, within yourself of what you could implement, you know? Yeah, what speaks to you? What piece calls you that you can do? And what other pieces do you think you would need from other people, that you could draw to you uh, for these projects? So to develop a new education system. But definitely, I feel like we could really eliminate this idea of special education and regular education um, in the next 5, 7 years. If we again slow things down, sensory integration, let students process in the way that they need to process. um, get to know your own energy field. Uh, in the meantime. Um, so anyway, any other questions? Because I know there's a lot of energy. Like I said, I could barely get out of bed this morning because I could feel it. Once I stepped up to say, okay, I'm going to do this, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting a huge download now. Um, so anyway, uh, you know, maybe I'll do it again if people are interested. Maybe more of a, question and answer. People can pop in and um, share experiences, or I don't know, maybe in a month, 6 months, 6 weeks, 2 months, maybe we could do something, kind of on a Zoom call if people want, or share their ideas of uh, uh, what they're processing, and questions, and what they might have, what their ideas are. Again, it's going to take um, a collective humanity and a collective local community to make the changes that are upon us. So again, so thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining. I know it's been an hour, and I know it's a lot of energy, so it's probably that's going to make you kind of tired yourself. But yeah, thank you, everybody, for joining me. And yeah, would love to hear more about you know what inspiration, or if you are inspired, what ideas are coming to you, or what you've accomplished, or what you were able to make happen, that kind of thing. So yeah, okay, thank you.